Yes, sir.
You did.
I did.
3 Journeys in a Christian Life, written by Pastor E.L. Spears II. Spears, who is also on our team for the Warren Theological Foundation. We thank him for being here. Also, we have Rick Queary. Say hello, Rick.
Hi.
And we have Dr. Ron Rucker. So thank you so much for not just being here now, but just being on the Warren team. Let's begin, first of all, tell us about this book, just the general premise of it.
Okay. Well, the general idea was really to talk about 3 fundamental journeys that every Christian will go through, not singularly, but secularly. And it really was birthed from a sermon series that I did. I had workshops around, and the Lord just allowed it to be birthed into a very small, digestible book. And so the idea is that the book is not designed to have a long run. It's designed to be a deep dive. And so it's been used by several churches for book studies. It's been used by others for internal reflection. But the idea is that these 3 journeys every Christian's going to go on. Sometimes we don't realize we're on it, so it's hard to kind of navigate it. So having an idea of why you're on or what journey you're on kind of helps you navigate through what you're exposed and what you're dealing with, so that it doesn't necessarily change the journey, but it prepares us to be able to make the journey. Just like if I'd have known about the traffic, I'd have been better prepared for the journey. So I was on the journey of traffic earlier today.
Okay. And where can people go buy the book?
So the book is actually available through our church website at Faith and Love Church of God in Christ, faithandlovekojic.com. And so there is a link to buy the book there. And I do want to say we're very happy to give a small donation to Warren for each book that is actually published. Well, not published, already published.
Yeah.
Every book that's purchased
right.
going forward, they reference that they heard about it on Warren. We do want to sow back into you and this wonderful work that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Well, let's jump into our discussion about this book.
All right. Well, Pastor, my first question comes from the first chapter, The Journey of Submitting. And from page 17, where you talk about choices, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's choices can be beneficial or dangerous, but there is no victory without choice. And from this first chapter, my question is: it seems to present tension between free will and divine providence in the context of Christian faith. So how can you offer some insight into reconciling that theological concept?
I love your question. And actually, free will is one of the things that God gave us. The ability to choose is the only way to have victory. God does not want to force us to do anything. God has not removed us. We are not like the angels that don't have a choice. We actually have choice. And the victory comes when we choose God. And so this is why even when you look at the beginning, the garden had both choices in it. It was not a removal of choice. However, God still knows every choice we're going to make. He has a full understanding of every possibility there. And so it's not that we are ever going around what God has. God is already predicted, aware. He has seen the end from the beginning. It's amazing because God is outside of time. So he's seeing everything at once at the same time. He's already experienced it. He knows what we're going to go through. So we still have choices to make, but he's already really designed a plan for us. The fullness of that plan will be determined by how well we align to what he's given us and the directions that he's giving us. And so the idea that somehow God removes all of our choices and we only have one thing to do, that's not actual. But what we do know is that God has a preferred plan for us. He has a permissive plan for us. And we make choices that find what part of that we experience to the fullest. So, and in addition to that, I think we also overcomplicate choice. And I think that was part of this same chapter. We overcomplicate choice, and what I mean by that is we often think we're making a multitude of choices. We're really only making the same choice in different factors. Will I follow God or not? That's what it all boils down to. This morning when I got up, I could have had some really wonderful fried, frosted cereal, or I could have had something healthy. Now you said that has nothing to do with God. Actually, it's, am I going to be a good steward of the body God gave me, doing what He wants for me to do, or am I going to do what I feel like doing and take the shortcut? But it's always about whether I'm going to follow God or not. Okay. It shows up in different iterations. But if you are truly understanding God's divine plan, He's always trying to lead us in the right direction. Our choice is whether or not we're going to listen.
Yeah, and when I was reading that part, I thought that was a powerful. I thought that was a very powerful way to put it. That every choice is either a choice for God or against God. Now, I feel two ways about that. There is a devotional side of me that really connected with, like, okay, I can see that. But then I guess the more philosophical side was like, well, wait a minute, is God that specific? Okay, now, and I'm gonna be honest with you, my background, how I was introduced to Christianity. In a very, down-to-earth family where Christianity was not that complicated, okay? There is that belief system in place that God does care about every single decision that I make. Now, it's not until you go to seminary and where you are introduced to the idea that maybe God does not care about every single decision that I make. So I want you to address that more philosophical side, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that I'm looking for a wife, okay? I'm not. I have a wife.
He made that really clear. He made that very clear. Philosophically.
Yes.
He has
Hypothetically.
a wonderful family. Yes.
Hypothetically, let's say I'm looking for a wife.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does God have only one person? There is only one person for me that my choice of that one person is the only choice that will satisfy God. Or has God given me a set of principles to go by? And there's a range of women who fit that, that fit within that those confinements or those parameters. Okay, so when we talk about making choices, and we want to please God in our every choice, of course, right. How specific is God?
I love, super love that question because it really gets a really deeper conversation about how involved is God in our lives.
Okay.
And so there is this very large conversation about, God is just looking for your general intention. God is looking for your general faithfulness. God is looking that you fall within the parameters of this overall idea of holiness or this overall idea of Christianity. But when you go back, what God says to the prophet is, I knew you before you were born. I knew you before I formed you.
Right. Okay.
I knew everything. I even called what your profession would be. I knew where you were born, where you were going to be born. I knew what time you were going to be born. And God is so specific. He knows every hair on your head. So a God that's specific does not leave to chance this plethora of options. What he does do is try to lead you to the best option, the one that he's made best for you. But he also has a mind to know that you may go in a different direction. So he has things that will fit but will not fulfill.
Okay, say it again. You said it will fit.
It will fit, but it will not fulfill. So I like how you described it earlier. So there are all these different women, just using the marriage example, that might fit the parameters. She's a good woman, she's attractive, she's a church goer, she believes, she has good faith. Those are wonderful factors that will fit. And in theory, you could have a happy life with one of those people. Okay. However, God is so specific. When he made Eve specifically for Adam. everything about Eve, and I love the fact that he uses the rib and he puts the rib back, because when you think about it, he made something that was designed to fit specifically into a space. And so when God is making this person, per se, for us, he's making the person that is going to be just right to fulfill, not just fit. There's going to be things about her that you're going to be able to bring out. There's going to be things about you that she's going to be able to bring out. And that particular combination is just as specific as your fingerprints. Now, does it mean that we will always get the right choice? It doesn't mean if we make the quote-unquote wrong choice that we will have a horrible life. No, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that God has this person that he has specially designed to be, as I like to put, broken just the way you're broken.
Okay.
And their grooves from their life experience fit your grooves from your life experience, and then between the two of you, you become this new creature, this new whole, because we don't have two people. It becomes a new whole that can now do something that either the individual parts cannot do alone. You're going to get the fullness of that with the exact person that God has for you. Now, you can have some level of happiness with someone else. You can have some level of success with someone else. But the fullness of what God has for you is with a specific person, because God has a specific plan, and that plan is bigger than the two of you. So everything that is coming together, we often think about, and I love this question, because it really gets into something so much bigger.
Right.
I love the fact that we think about, well, this is just my choice. This is, I'm picking somebody for me. But no, you're picking someone for your children. You're picking someone that's going to be for the rest of your family, your extended family, your community, your friend. The person that you are, your ministry, the person that God has for you is a fit for all of that and will fulfill what he has in all those places. So there are some people, man, well, no, I forgot theological broadcast almost, but keep it nice. She's beautiful, and she has a great mind, but she's not going to fit with a person that's going to be in your congregation 5 years from now.
Okay.
God knows who's coming 5 years from now. God knows who he needs your children to be able to relate to, and those children will only have the right combination of experience and DNA if the two perfectly aligned people come together. So this idea of even any that small of a choice, saying, well, do I have to be that deliberate? Well, God is dealing with more than just your choice in that moment. He's dealing with his bigger plan. So it's more than just, well, God, I'm good. But he has something very specific that's bigger than that. So yes, I honestly believe, and for someone who was engaged to someone I thought was the right person, ended up marrying the person that was the right person, been through it. And I remember my pastor said something I thought was wise. Those old preachers give you that wise stuff that you were like, you could have just told me the answer. And so when I told him, when I was in college and I told him, I said, I found the woman I want to marry and I'm going to get married. And he said, okay, all right then, son, happy for you. Now, fast forward, that relationship fell apart. I found the woman that that God had for me, and we had both been broken in just the right ways that we were able to be knitted because we had the right ravels. And when he met her and I introduced him to her, I asked him, hey, I'd like you to kind of counsel with us and all that. And everything went well, and I've been married for almost 30 years. And I asked him one time, I said, you knew the first one wasn't going to work, didn't you? He said, yeah. And I said to him, why didn't you tell me? He said, you didn't ask. You told me you were getting married. I said, okay, that's what you decided. When I came the second time and I said, hey, I found someone that I think is the right person. Right. Can we get, premarital counseling? He said, sure. And that was the first person I thought met all my parameters. I was at Morehouse, she was at Spelman. I was going to be an attorney, a corporate attorney. Yeah, that's why I argue with you all the time. I was going to be a corporate attorney. She was going to be a doctor. I was having my reverse Huxtables in my plan. That's what I thought God had for me. I knew that's what it was. I didn't seek him for it, but I believed that's what it was going to be. But that wasn't it. He had the right person going through a different situation, and after he humbled me and put me through a couple of situations, we were then perfectly matched. And for 30 years, God has proven his word.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Are you promoting the book or are you promoting your wife? Or both?
Look, in all things, I'm promoting my wife, guys.
There you
Look.
go.
Now, so,
That's good. That's
and
good.
for our audience, we're really not talking about marriage. Really, we're talking about a decision because
Right,
that's what the
right.
book
That
is
was
talking
his
about.
example,
That's
yeah.
the book is talking about. You in your book you address choice
Yes.
as a very specific, or at least the choice that God desires.
Right, his preferred choice.
It is very specific, and we need and when we make choices, we need to be mindful of that. That God has not a range of things that He wants for me, but there is one particular thing, and that's how you address it in the book.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, God has a very deliberate outcome because we are all intertwined into this large tapestry called existence. And so we have to understand, and I said this in the first chapter, it's not, people often say, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do or figure out who I want to be. No, what I really want to ask is, God, what do you want me to be? Because I've already been built, designed, and gifted to be what you want me to be. And I'm going to have the fullness of the best life possible for me if I fulfill what I was built to do. And so I can be successful to certain degrees in other things, but I'm really specifically, wonderfully, fearfully made for a particular purpose. And so when I entreat God about that, I'm asking for Him not to bless who I think I'm supposed to be. I'm asking Him to reveal who He's already made me to be, and then help me to be the best version of that I can be.
And choice is a vital part of it.
Yes, because the thing about it is God is not trying to force you to be. He's trying to reveal to you the desires of your heart so He can give them to you.
So you look at choice not as like a got you type of thing from God, but it's an opportunity that God has given to us.
Most definitely. The victory is in choice. God's victory is in choice because now He has love. Love is not forced. Love is a decision. Love is something that you give freely. The adversary is trying to get us to have to use our choice to not choose God. We win in choice when we see that our choices expose us to things that are even greater than we could ask or think. And so when we're making the right choices, when you hear David say, shall I pursue? It wasn't that he didn't think he could kill him. This dude, David, kills tens of thousands. You burn Ziklag, bro. Time to pay. Mount up. But he understood, I want to make sure it's whatever God wants because that's going to be the fullness. And when you see David not asking, shall I pursue, then you find him getting in trouble. So yeah, choice is really an opportunity for God to be confirmed, for us to be gratified, and for our lives to be full of the true relationship that He has with His blessings.
Okay.
So are you referring to choice in everything? Or are you referring to choice in like life matters?
Everything.
Okay. And so to counter that, I'm going to say I would hate to go grocery shopping with you.
You probably would.
That's not
My
the
wife-
peach.
my
That's
wife
not the
hates grocery
peach
shopping.
that God wants.
Listen, my wife hates grocery shopping with me.
Yeah, but it seems like it could cause paralysis by analysis. That we don't,
Right.
that we're so concerned that we're going to make a wrong choice that we don't make any choice, which is an even worse choice.
Oh, I love that. And here's what I love about that. So my wife and I have been married for almost 30 years.
Right.
And no, I'm not promoting my wife, but I'm just using an example. I don't know why Desso and I, we just get along like this. I love it. Now, I have relationship with my wife.
Right?
So because I have relationship with my wife and I'm in constant communication with my wife, there's certain things I don't have to ask my wife because we've already established those things.
Right.
And so if I'm in relationship with God, one of the things I tell people when they talk about I want to pray, before you pray, have you even asked God what you should be praying for? A lot of times we'll come to God and say, God,
Sure.
I want you to do this. And it's like, well,
Right.
did you even ask me if that was my will? And so the thing about that is, and why it's so important, Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. I was having dialogue. The thing about that's so important is if we stay in right relationship with God, I should not only be coming to him when I'm asking a question. I should be in a constant conversation with him. Everything that I do, he's often talking to me. And so when we're having this dialogue, not a monologue where I'm asking him,
Right.
but if I'm having a consistent dialogue with him, I don't have to pause at every moment. I'm following the instructions. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm following the instructions, I'm hearing the leading fresh.
Right.
I'm seeking him every morning before I start my day.
Right.
I'm pivoting throughout the day. I'm listening. If he says move a different way, I'm moving.
Right.
And so when I go to the grocery store, I've already thought about what my list was. I've already prayed about the finances for it.
Right.
I've already looked to see if this is the store that's going to carry it. And so when I go in, I'm going to follow the behavior that God has instructed me to have. Now, I'm sorry, Rick.
That's right.
In that same moment, we both got it. In that same, I'm sorry, I'm messing with the audio guys so bad. I'm sorry, but in that same moment, I like your grocery store example because I don't know how many times I've been in the grocery store and God has had me pay for somebody's groceries.
Yeah.
Wasn't my plan.
Right.
I don't know how many times God has put me in the right register with the person having the bad day,
Right.
and I realized I wasn't there to get groceries. I was really there to encourage them.
I didn't
That's
mean to go down the aisle,
I
but that
did-
person had a need for prayer.
I like
Listen, I don't know how many times I've been in the grocery store and I overhear, and I think we often think like it's an accident. We just happen to be. No, God allowed me to
Right.
overhear someone's need, and so because I'm in relationship with Him, I don't even have to pause at that moment to say, God, what are you doing? He's already telling me,
Right.
I need you to do this. I'm showing this to you to do it. So I think the struggle, and someone asked this question actually in one of our we've done this with several churches, and one of the conversations was, well, what if I make the wrong decision? How do I deal with that? And the question is not about trying to always make the right decision. The question is about, am I continuing the right relationship so that the decision becomes organic?
Right.
And that's where this journey of submitting is so vital, because my son asked this question. He said, Dad, when you wrote this, why do you call it the journey of surrendering instead of the journey of submitting? I was like, that's a great question. And I asked the Holy Spirit, okay, God, you gave me the topic. Why?
Right.
He brought this to my understanding. Surrendering in our context means to give up, to give away. Submitting means to turn over and to entrust.
Right.
And so if I'm living my life in the idea that it is God's life, that I'm entrusting it to Him and He's entrusting it to me, and everything I have is His, it's not that I've given up, it's that I've given over.
Right.
And so if I've given over, then I'm constantly trying to follow that lead, and I'm not trying to make a spot decision. I'm always trying to follow His example, and I'm listening as we're having a conversation.
Okay. And if you don't mind, state those
sorry.
State
having
those
fun.
those three journeys. I don't know if we ever have we
you
stated
asked me at the beginning, and I got so excited about being here. So the book is broken up into three sections. There's three common journeys. There's a journey of submitting, there's the journey of surrender, the journey of strengthening, and the journey of sharing. Okay. And so each of those journeys actually have a different component to your experience in God. In each of those chapters, we have an example of storms, ships, and journeys. In each of those examples, we have some moment of faith and engagement with God. And we find that depending on where you are in life and circumstance, you may be on one or two or on someone else's journey. And so understanding what these roles are allows for us to kind of pick up what God may be asking us to do in that moment. Because even after I've gone through, in order for me to go on the journey of sharing, I have to already have gone through the journey of submitting.
Right.
Because if I don't submit, I'm going to share the wrong thing. I'm not even going to be there to share their journey.
Right.
So these journeys, even though they seem sequential, they're cyclical, and we go on them multiple times. I am surrendering daily about some things.
I mean, submitting.
Submitting.
Thank you.
Choose your
Thank
words.
you. Thank you. Rick, help me, man. Help me.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
I'm sharing that one.
Thank you.
Submitting.
You read the book.
I did read the book.
So I'm submitting daily. I am giving God everything daily. And then I have to be reminded that there are some experiences that I haven't had yet. So when I'm going on this journey of strengthening and God is exposing something new to me, I have to decide at that moment again, how do I respond to that? That new experience, do I now submit that? And then if I can submit, I can also share it. Because there's going to be things that God has me go through for someone else.
Right.
And it really isn't about me, but it's always about God.
Right.
And so those three journeys are really cyclical. There's not like, oh, I did that when I'm done. the more you learn, when you learn something new about God, you often have to submit that new understanding in your life. So when I've been in ministry for several decades now, and I just came from the conference this morning, and I was like, God, I'm convicted about a couple things I need to go work on. And instead of saying I'm the pastor, I got multiple degrees, I'm a AVP in corporate work. Nope, God, I'm submitting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do it the way you just showed me to do it, and I'm praying you lead me through it. So those are the 3 journeys, and yeah, I can see I ramble, but I love these things.
Oh no,
Well,
that's
the
good.
whole submitting thing is something that I actually touched on our last Sunday's Bible study at our house, because I was like, men typically, I'm going to use some of the men typical stuff. We deal with anger. We deal with short patience rather than long suffering. We're short suffering.
Yes.
We deal with lust, and those are all things that. So when I'm battling with lack of patience or maybe some frustrations and wanting to get angry, the Lord specifically said, Rick, have you given that over to me? Because if you want victory in this area, it's not going to happen without submitting it to him.
Yes.
So the word submission came in last week even before I read your book, which I just finished this morning.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we forget, because when we talk about cast our cares, that's submitting it. It's giving it over to him. And I think sometimes we can get so caught up in even our own sense of self,
Right.
that this false sense of self-reliance can cause us to become distant from our wonderful position of dependency.
Yeah.
And for men in particular, and this is in the journey of submitting, so I'm still kind of on the book, but we all over, so I'm loving this.
Right.
But for men in that journey of submitting, it's difficult because we are taught to be leaders. We're taught to be upfront. We're taught to be stoic. We're taught to be reserved. But what God says is, you can't do anything. You can't even be a real man to the fullness without me.
Right.
Right.
And so the first thing I have to do is submit my power and my position.
That's a humbling.
Yes.
There you go.
And I'm empowered
Right.
when I submit my power.
Right.
Because if I submit my power into his hands, then when I'm given the authority to do something, I feel empowered to do it because he's giving me the authority, not I'm taking it or I'm forcefully doing it. And I think we can get into a whole nother discussion, which I won't. That's looking at me.
This week.
Yeah, this week.
We're going to do 3 episodes.
I think we miss because we have this idea, we condemn some of the things of the church. We condemn the patriarchy. We condemn these other things. But I think sometimes what we have missed is many of those things that we're condemning, we're not condemning because they were wrong. We're condemning because they were misused.
Right.
And until we learn how they were properly supposed to be used, how God established them, we're not even condemning the right thing. And so a lot of people have bad experiences with church, bad experiences with patriarchal experiences, bad experiences with structure. But they're saying, well, they misused this. Yes, they did, but they didn't do it God's way.
Right.
So I need to go back and figure out what God's way was. And then I can actually function in this thing that God established from a structural standpoint for us to have the fullness of what he has for us.
Right.
I'm loving this.
Yeah.
So much fun.
I need some clarification on something, but it looks like we're probably going to need 3 episodes instead of 2.
I'm sorry. I'm talking too much.
But that's good.
It says the 3 journeys. I was wondering why we were going to condense it just 2
So
weeks.
that's good. I like that. See, he's sharp.
He is.
But my clarification is something you mentioned earlier on. You said organic on something.
Yes.
So it's not about me as far as the right decision, it's the right relationship. If I'm in the right relationship, I should make the right decision.
If you're in the right
am I
relationship,
understanding that right?
The right decision becomes second nature. Not that it becomes completely obvious all the time, because we still have to ask, we still have to seek. But understanding it this way, if my goal is to please God,
Okay.
then my decisions on a regular basis are drawing me to him and trying to follow closely to him. And so it allows for, it's almost like when we think about the term disciple, we miss the core of discipline. And the idea of discipline is not that we are punishing.
Right.
The idea of discipline is that we are structurally following a path. And so when I really look at discipleship, I'm structurally determined, decisioned to follow a path of God. If I'm seeking him continuously and I'm in a relationship with him and I'm in prayer, and I don't mean just walking around praying all the time, but I mean I'm having conversations with him in my car. I'm when I have a moment, I'm not speaking, I'm thinking. And even when I'm speaking, I'm thinking of him. And so he's leading me in a way that puts me in the position to make good decisions. When I'm out of relationship, I will often get exposed to more things that give me more opportunity to make other decisions. So, yeah.
So, even if I make a bad decision, it's not gonna make sense. Even if I make a bad decision, it's a good decision.
So here would be my thinking.
Come on.
I'm going to use marriage as an example. My wife wants something.
It's him.
My wife wants something from the store, and I get something that's close but not the right thing, not perfect. So even though I made a choice that I thought was what she would want, I didn't get exactly the perfect. And then because we're in covenant, because we're in relationship, there's grace there.
Yes.
And we get the grace from Father.
Yes.
From our dad.
Yes.
Now, when you add that layer, there you go.
Well, I mean, and if you think about it, Rucker, I love where you were going with that,
because that's the layer.
When you look at even something, and we often use David. David is, anybody that's been in church for a while, we know about David. Yeah. David gives us a great example of a bad choice. That God still gave grace, even with penalty,
right?
But still made good out of it. And so when you look at David not being where kings were supposed to be, so he wasn't in right relationship at the moment. And because he wasn't in right relationship, he should have been on the battlefield. Even if he wasn't fighting, he should have been in the tent with his men leading. He was at a place where he wasn't supposed to be. Men weren't supposed to be in town. We get upset with Bathsheba all the time, but understand, if all the men were gone, she had no reason to be worried about bathing outside. So he was in the wrong place, which opened up the door for him to make a wrong choice. But God's grace was so great that even after he chastised him, he still used that relationship. Once you hear him stop calling him Uriah's wife, and now she becomes David's wife after he's lost the child and God's brought them into a better alignment. Now Solomon comes out of that. So he made a choice that was not God's desire for him. But God was still able to bring Christ through his experience there, which brought something that was a lesson for all of us. So there are some things, we get into this journey of strengthening and sharing, there are some things that will happen in life. I tell people all the time, everything in the Bible is true, but it's not everything that we're supposed to do. There are some things that are cautionary. There are some things that God uses a life illustration to bring a point that we will need for future experiences. And so, yes, he made a choice that was not right because he had fallen out of relationship. He got complacent. But God did not throw him away. He didn't do him like Saul. He held on to him. He had grace. And he restored to him his full relationship, even though there was penalty.
And the key is right relationship.
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 Go to war when you're supposed to go to war.
And
that's a whole other message in that, Rick.
And there is a New Testament example, I think, and I don't think you use this. You use a lot of examples from Scripture. I don't think you use this one that I'm about to mention, but Joseph in the New Testament. Joseph had a decision to make with his fiancée. Now, when you look, Joseph was getting ready to make the wrong decision.
Yes, he was.
With all of the right
facts.
Factors, I should say.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. He was trying to make a decision that honored God. He could have embarrassed Mary, but he was even acting out of love. When he decided to put her away privately. And I mean, just biologically, and you add things up. I did not touch her, and she is pregnant. Nothing else makes sense. So he was thinking on this. Joseph was thinking on this, and he's trying to make the right decision that honors God, because the Bible introduces him as a devout man.
Devout man.
Yes.
He is trying to make the right decision, and he's even trying to make the right decision out of love and consideration for the person who, in his mind, who has hurt him and betrayed him.
Right.
And even with all of those good intentions, he still would have made the wrong decision without the proper relationship.
There it is.
It was still the relationship. The Lord spoke to him in a dream. It's because he was open to God.
That's a good point.
What's the word? Adjusting his beliefs and his perspective on these set of facts. He was open to God's direction,
Right.
even in that matter. So I love the point that you're making in the book of how when we talk about making the right decision, our relationship with God must have a bearing on what decision we make, because we can have, good intentions, but if and I think I made my point. But Joseph had a decision to make, and with every good intention, he still would have made the wrong decision if not in connection with God.
But you make such a strong point, and I love the Joseph example, as I think I'm using him for Father's Day, for my topic for Father's Day. But here's the thing that you said that I think we miss sometimes. When we hear the story, Joseph recognized the voice, which means he was in relationship. He was in conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
And he chose, we're talking about decision, he chose to trust what God told him and make a decision based on that versus what his senses and the factoids or factors,
and what he learned in biology class.
what he learned in biology, what he knew from society.
Right.
The context of what he knew. He was not just taking a wife, he was taking responsibility. He was taking on all the responsibility, because no matter how much he said it wasn't me, you're still marrying her, so they're going to assume it's you. He's taking all of that on because of relationship with God. It changed his decision, and I love how you put it. It was not an earthly wrong decision, but it was not the divine best decision. He would not have violated any biblical tenet had he put her away. As a matter of fact, he was following biblical tenets by putting her away privately.
Absolutely.
But relationship allowed for him to be in conversation, and then he made a choice. He submitted his right to put her away for what God had in store, because he trusted God more than what he had seen. And you see the same thing when you go back even to the first temptation of Christ. There's nothing wrong with bread. There's nothing wrong with making bread. They have bread all the time. It was the reasoning for the bread. It was the motivation behind the bread. And so our decisions can be right by earthly standard, but not for divine purpose. And so that's why, again, it's always about going back to God and saying, God, what would you have me to do? What is it? And in those moments when I don't know what to do, don't rush to a decision. I love the other thing about the reference that you use. Joseph does not run immediately to put her away. Even in this hard space, he sits in it long enough to listen. And a lot of times we can become so confident in what we know of Scripture. We can be so confident of what we know in church. We can be so confident in what we know of people that we don't pause long enough to listen to see what God may say that prompts the right decision. And I think everyone here as leaders, you've had that before, where something in your church and somebody's like, well, this is what you ought to do, but God's like, that's not the right choice.
Not this time.
Yeah, not this time.
Right.
Yes, that person's out of order. Yes, that person's having this issue, and people in the church may not understand why you're giving them grace, but God said give them grace.
Right.
God said you need to embrace them versus putting them away. And this is another part of where that journey of submitting comes in, because it often, the submitting costs you to give up something that you have a right to. In many cases, God gave you the choice to make whatever choice you wanted, but you're giving away part of that because you're holding God higher. So, in my line of work as MBA and all that other stuff that I do in my secular life, we call that opportunity cost. what's the cost of the
Right.
first choice I don't make?
Right.
You lose something whenever you
Oh,
make
yeah.
a choice.
Absolutely.
And so when you look at this journey of submitting, God is asking us to hold him more important than what we think the next best choice is. And even when you look at Christ, he said, even going to the cross, thinking about what was to gain afterwards. He chose to take the pain
Right.
because his focus was on
Right.
all of us
And the obedience to the Father.
and obedience to the Father,
Yeah.
whose focus was on all of us.
Right.
Okay, I'm
All
sorry.
right. Now,
I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
add that the Joseph thing wasn't like he accidentally got in right relationship for that moment.
Right.
Because you see it
Right.
when he has the dream that
Absolute.
says, time to go to Egypt.
Yes.
Get out of Dodge.
Right.
Yes, he's still there.
So he's still in that I'm submitted role.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Right.
yes.
yeah. Thank you all. Now,
That was good.
Oh, goodness.
I like that.
3 journeys, 3, not just one, 3 journeys in a Christian life.
Right.
For this episode, we mostly talked about the journey of submitting. And what are those other 2?
The journey of strengthening and the journey of sharing.
Journey of strengthening and the journey of sharing. Okay. And we're going to need another episode.
3.
Yeah, to get to those.
2 more.
But thank to our audience, I want to say thank you again so much for joining us today, and we do hope that this conversation has been beneficial to you in a devotional way, not just an academic way, but as Christians, we of course always need to be mindful
Yes.
of that every choice we make, it is for our God. We want to say thank you to our sponsors and partners, the Dallas Bible Theological Institute, the Urban Christian Writers Guild, the Westmount Moriah Baptist Church of Fort Worth, Texas, and the Bread of Life Baptist Church of Fort Worth, Texas. If you want to be a sponsor, go to our website, WarrenTheology.org, and it tells you there on the homepage of how to participate in this podcast. If you just want to donate, in general, also they're on the homepage of WarrenTheology.org, or you can donate via CashApp. If you are a writer, professor, seminarian, pastor, we welcome papers for our quarterly journal, the Warren Journal of Theology. Again, WarrenTheology.org. Go to our website to submit papers to keep these theological conversations going. And what you say?
No, absolutely.
Okay. If you're watching, you've noticed that on one half we have the people with hair, and on the other half,
Oh, no.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Wow, Rick.
in
I'm all right with that.
in this
Right.
episode,
Works for you.
It just means that God's hand was on me.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
in this episode, I'm sure you can tell that we've had a lot more fun than average, just because
Wow.
we're all on the same team.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, and until then, join us next Saturday for our next podcast, Connecting Theology podcast. And until then, blessings.
Hi, Amy Manuel here, proud Texas liberal and host of Political Musings every Monday at noon on Fishbowl Radio. Each week, we explore politics through the lens of